So now I get to install the AC unit itself. So I put these on, the extensions, and then there's a bracket here, and then you can see the bolt that's sticking out through the bracket. This bolt is the one that's going in the heater delete plate, the one that I didn't have a bolt in when I did the installation. And then we have this bracket here, and these two holes, they actually go up towards the cowl, so I have to create two new holes to be able to bolt this unit up. So this here is for the heater, and then of course I have one AC and the other AC line. So in order to do this unit, the kit calls to do some modifications to the kick panel. So I have here the kick panel. This is the original stock kick panel, and what I have to do is I have to remove this, and then I actually have to make a cutout so that I can install this, and then it'll have those holes. So that will be the next step. And then as far as the heater hoses, I went and I ordered, I went to the auto parts store and I bought two 8-foot lengths of 5/8 inch heater hose, and I also changed the fitting, this one to be an angle, and then of course I had to change this fitting. This was a 3/4, so I changed it to a 5/8 inch, since the kit calls for two 5/8 inch line, and stock one of the lines was 3/4 and the other one was 5/8. So now they're both 5/8. And then I routed the heater hoses already. Get the light. So the heater hoses are there, and the one on top is going to be the Freon hoses. So that's there so far. So I'm going to have to work on this panel here, and where is it? Right here. And we'll touch back after I got that done. So here's the back side of the panel that I'm going to have to cut, the kick panel. All around here it had this nasty gook. I don't know what this is, but it's some kind of sealant that they put all the way around. And so I pulled that off. Then you had to pull this off, so it has like a little clip that gets attached here, and so you pull that off, and then you take off the spring connection off of there. It just basically slides off, and then the door, actually you can pretty much just pull it off. And then I'm going to take my trusty Dremel with a cutoff wheel, and I'm going to cut all of this off, just this part here. I'm going to cut it off, and then after I cut that off, I'll show you what my next step is going to be. So I cut it off. Here's the piece that I cut off. That's the finished cut. I just grind it down as much plastic as possible, and then the instructions call for an entire cutout. Basically cut out the whole thing, and I don't want to do that. I really don't like the way that looked. So I did a couple test fittings with this plate here, and I noticed that it has these little dimples. So right here is another one. Anyway, when I was looking at the dimples, I found that it lines up with these holes, but yet the panel has a whole bunch of other holes. Well, what I did was I drilled out the dimples so that I can use it as for the stock holes. And then after I had drilled out the holes and test fitted in the car, I found that I just needed to cut out this part of the vent, and I didn't cut out all of that. So I think this looks much better. And so basically it would be like this, and then we would have the let's put it a little bit better. Alright, it would be like that, and then you see all four hoses would pop through without me making a whole big mess here.
And then I made a little bit of a clearance here because the hose that goes here is a big number 10 hose for the air conditioning, so I gave it a little bit of a clearance right here on this side just to make sure that it clears. And that's pretty much it. So that part is done. So this gets installed in the car after I start connecting up all the AC lines and the heater hose lines. So now I attack the unit going under the dash. So there's a dashboard and you can see the unit right there. It's nicely tucked under there. And I had to drill 2 holes in the cowl. And so when I did so, it calls for sheet metal screws, these big old sheet metal screws. And I didn't like that, so I went in my grab bag and I found these bolts, and I decided to go for nuts and bolts with some lock washers. I like that better. That way in the cowl I don't have this big old screw sticking up. I don't like that. I just have a nice head on the inside of the cowl, which is easily painted and disguised. So there's a unit, and there's the vent right there. So basically you have here behind the heater hoses, which will come out and then into the vent, and then on the top here we have the air conditioning line, and the other one's in the back, and they will come out and then down into the vent as well. So I had to have this mocked up and prepared before I get everything attached, because once I attach all the hoses and stuff, basically you just lift it up and get it into position. So there it is. And so now over here, here's the defrost, and so they will go to the vents on the up on the dash. And so I had a flasher in the way, it was right here, so I'm gonna have to relocate the flasher. It was basically right in the way of where that hose needs to be, so I had to get rid of that. So the last thing I needed to do is the drain on the bottom. Where is it? It's right here. This is the drain for the water that accumulates when you're running the air conditioning. So it has this big old long black hose, and it also has this elbow, and this elbow is supposed to go on the sheet metal, and then of course the hose gets connected between the elbow and the drain that's right there. And it says basically you measure in line with the unit, and then you get 1 inch down, so that you have a slight decline for the water to, you know, easily escape. And it's right here. When I checked on the other side of the floor pan, well, that's where my headers are, and I don't feel too comfortable having the drain something plastic near the headers, because these might melt. So what I decided to do is look for an alternate area, and so I decided that I wanted it more towards the transmission, because there's no headers there, and when the water is escaping, since the transmission is aluminum, no worries of getting anything rusty. So I'm going to put the hose to still have that decline, okay, but right around there. So I'm going to drill it right around here. I made this hole here, but it's just a small hole, and so I need a 5/8 inch hole. So I'm going to do it more closer towards here, and that way I can put the elbow in, and once the elbow's in, I'll just silicone the elbow to the floor, and it's sealed against outside, so that way it's nicely hidden away there. I don't want it over here in the front also, because when you have a passenger here, they might kick it or something. We don't want to have a big old flood in here. So if I make it go all the way to the back and then go and turn to the hump. This is away from anyone's feet, and that's a good thing. We don't need water coming in and ruining my floor pans. Okay, so I drilled my hole and I put the unit back in. I had to take the unit out to be able to drill, but there it is right there. And I have that slight decline that I needed, and that's gonna be good for the water to flow down. And then of course I have some excess here that I will be cutting. So when I cut that off, I'll show you what I'm going to do with the excess. So that came out to be a good success. And then of course I'll be siliconing that whole area to seal it against the floor so that I don't have any problems. And then I'll show you under the engine, in the engine bay here. So there's the nipple right there. So with the excess, I'm going to attach it to the nipple and have it run down. So that way the water would pass the wire loom there. I don't want the water to flow on top of the wire loom, because then the water might get into it. So I'm just going to extend it so that it goes down with whatever I have left as far as after I trim the hose. So that's done. I'm glad that came out pretty good. And so now next thing I gotta do is get that compressor motor on so that I know where to route the heater hoses and the AC lines. So I went and I ordered my lines that came in. So here's the line that I wanted to get. It's 18 inches long and it's the same length as this one. So I measured this one. This is 18 inches long. But the problem with this one is it has two males. I can't use the two males, and that's why I was just using this as a mock-up to get an idea of what I needed to do as far as making my own line. The new line had to have one female and one male in order for it to work. So basically this side goes to the compressor and this side goes towards the condenser. So I am going to want to route it, as I stated. It's going to make one bend here, it's going to come down, and it's going to make another bend here, and then depending on where the compressor is, I'll decide how I want to make that last bend. So there it is. I might just possibly make a bend right here upwards and then towards the compressor, so another bend. So I don't know, we'll see, but that's what I have to do. That way I can put on the inner fender as well, get that inner fender in there so that I can properly route the lines and all the metal lines, aluminum lines. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching.